such a pleasure to be joining you right here on the India Development Debate on ET Now. I'm Supriya, Shrinate, and with me is Sandeep, Gurumurthi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in London, his second visit to the British capital in a span of just 3 years. Earlier in the day, the Indian Prime Minister did meet with his British counterpart Theresa May in a one-on-one meeting ahead of the crucial summit of the Commonwealth Heads of State, wherein the two leaders discussed a host of issues ranging from trade to terrorism. Reports do suggest that Modi also raised the crucial issue of Britain providing a safe haven for fugitives like Vijay Mallya or even Lalit Modi. The Prime Minister also assured that his British counterpart that trade ties between the two countries will continue to remain strong even after the youth case exit from the European Union. But all eyes and ears are on the Prime Minister's address to the Indian diaspora in London, aptly titled Bharat Ki Baat Sabke Saath, from the iconic Central Hall at Westminster.
While it is difficult to second-guess what Modi will focus on, political observers are already likening it with his famous Madison Square address in New York some 4 years ago. Expect some chest thumping as Modi talks about India leading the global growth charts, even as he hard sells the country's big strides in ease of doing business. Modi is also likely to hit out at Pakistan-sponsored terrorism, a topic which figured high on bilateral talks with the British Prime Minister. The jury is still out on whether Modi will talk about the horrific incidents involving 2 minor girls back home, although many believe that he could well use the stage to reassure the world that India is a safe country for women, especially against the backdrop of protests led by British Indian women groups. What to expect from that historic address, and of course analysing that address is what we're going to do over the next couple of hours right here on the India Development Debate. We'll also be joined live by Danish Khan from Times Now with a preview of what to expect from the Prime Minister. But joining us on the show this evening, Aman Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP, Charan Singh Sapra, spokesperson of the Congress Party, Sunil Alak, commentator and founder of SK Advisors, Sanjeev Srivastava, political commentator, and Anil Srignath, former ambassador. Thank you all so much for taking time out and joining us on the special edition of India Development Debate. Sanjeev Srivastava, let me start off with you. India is moving ahead, come join us. That was Modi's message at Wembley back in 2015. It seems like a long while ago, but it was about 3 years ago when he said that India is moving ahead, come join us. How different is it going to be this time around?
I think 2018 is not 2015. I was not there in Wembley, but I did, since you mentioned Madison Square, I was there in September 2014 when the Prime Minister went there. And that, flush on the back of his huge victory in the national elections, that was an event very difficult to forget. It was an event to remember. Great crowds, Prime Minister in full flow. And to be fair to Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi is, of course, he's a great orator, and he somehow really connects with the diaspora. I have not seen a Prime Minister who connects with the diaspora this well. Perhaps the last time, but I didn't happen to cover him anywhere overseas. Rajiv Gandhi could have, with his, very smart shades and Bandgala coat when he went to the UN after becoming the Prime Minister. But Narendra Modi does connect with diaspora. A lot of diaspora is a BJP supporter, middle class Indian who wants India to do well, so they identified with the Prime Minister. So somewhere in a strange kind of a mix, as his glory or begins to dim somewhat back home, abroad, the Prime Minister still retains this massive hold over the public, and he's a great persona there. And I don't know of anybody else in contemporary Indian political scene who can really play to the gallery as far as mass audiences is concerned. He's a great orator. So I'm sure he's going to connect very well. He's going to talk about what you said, Sandeep, ease of doing business, how India is making great strides, how we are the fifth fastest growing economy. But the question is, will he answer some of those questions which his political opponents are raising back home? And that is something we'll watch out for. And like somebody else has also said, whether that is the correct thing for him to do abroad, whether we should be even discussing that while he is abroad, is another facet to this debate. But let's wait.
I actually differ from people who say just because he's overseas, don't ask the tough questions. He is the Indian Prime Minister. He's representing us all at all times, no matter which part of the world he really is. And so those tough questions must be asked. But let's keep it with the speech and with the address. And Sunil Alak, coming to you, how different could today's pitch really be vis-a-vis 2015 at Wembley? Is it best perhaps at this stage to temper expectations on this being some path-breaking address? He is not a freshly minted Prime Minister. He's been in office for nearly 4 years now. There's 1 year to election. Is it best to perhaps temper expectations at this stage?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, he has, this is one audience that he can speak to and bring about a little bit of a log of what he's done for 4 years. And he's done a lot. Okay, some of his moves have failed, some of his moves have succeeded, but the intent of the Prime Minister is very clear both in India and abroad. He's never done anything for himself. He's done it for what he thought was India. Whether demonetization achieved or not, whether GST has achieved everything or not, he has begun the process. And none of this can be reversed. See, what also he started looking at this year now, he's worrying about the poor now. And he can talk about, we don't have a social security system. So he can talk about the health system that he wants to bring into India, which is this Modi care system. If that works, I mean, he's there for the next 10 years. He's also talking about giving money to the farmers. He's talking about, you know, he feels that I don't have to address the rich anymore. The outside world is already seeing India growing. The consumers are going to have more money. Come and invest in India. In fact, his biggest criticism, if you see, is that he's doing more for investors from outside than he's doing for people who are staying here. So at this point of time, he's going to really use the opportunity to talk about all that he's achieved, all that is yet to be achieved, and how he's beginning to look after the poor and therefore bring about the middle class spending power and the ease of doing business. But I think what will happen is, whilst on the economic front he's doing a lot, the social issues have got to be tackled. And whilst he may not address them, but I hope there'll be questions, and I'd love to hear his answers also on that. When I was there for the Make in India in Sweden, say about 5 months ago, and I was asked a question about the rapes and women and all, it wasn't as bad as what has happened now with Afisa, but even 5 months ago, this was a burning question outside, in Sweden at least. And I took it head on. I didn't wait to be questioned, and I hope he doesn't wait. He answered, because I just said, look, India is as large as Europe. And if you take, and I asked them, I said, if you have a problem in France, will you stop investing in Germany, and will you stop investing in Italy, and will you stop investing in other parts of Europe? And they said no. So I think at that point of time, I said, you're unhappy about UP and Bihar, where, you know, all this is really taking place. But come to the south. Come to the northeast, you know, we've got 29 states. So wait for 1 or 2 years, wait till the law and order situation gets okay in UP and Bihar. But India is a massive country. We've got Tamil Nadu, we've got Kerala, we've got Assam, we've got all over. Why don't you come there? And that silenced a lot of the critics. So do not think that by evading these questions, he's going to get away with it. I wish if he addresses them and says what he's doing about it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, if you look at 1.35 billion people in India, and we talk about 5 rapes or 10 rapes, our percentage also is, look, any rape is bad. I don't want anybody shouting and screaming right now. I don't care about every single rape. I'm a great one for women. But, you know, we tend to highlight the negatives in India so quickly compared to any other country. I mean, do you have anybody saying don't come to America because of Trump? They all hate Trump. I mean, most of the Americans do. But I don't see any American saying don't come. We will always build a story around us to say, look, don't come to India. It's a bad country. Rahul Gandhi will say the world is happening. The banking system has collapsed. Do not come. None of them, no other country in the world criticizes its own country as much as we do. And I think that's a huge fault to attract any kind of investment or build any kind of image.
Okay, fair enough. Since you have raised some questions on the Congress party, only fair, let Charan Singh Sapra come in first. Charan Singh Sapra, this is happening on a day when the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, in an interview to a newspaper, taunted the Prime Minister, you know, and called him Mon Modi and asked him to practice what he had once preached. Now, if we are to be believed what the BJP spokesperson have been telling us, this appears to be an unprecedented interaction of sorts, where he's going to take, you know, unscripted questions from audience, both present physically in the venue and also through the app. So this in some sense is being billed as an unprecedented interaction by Prime Minister Modi, in some sense a direct counter to the charges made by former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh in this interview.
See, what Dr. Manmohan Singh has said, that is because, you know, we have been seeing a scenario in this country that whenever there's an issue like the rapes which have recently happened, or whether it is the atrocity on Dalits, or whether it is the atrocity on farmers, or the lynching of the minorities in the name of beef ban or Gau Rakshak or whatever, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has never come out and spoken about this. Now, that's what Dr. Manmohan Singh wanted to say, that you now please replicate what you told me. So, there's nothing wrong in it. It is the role of the opposition party that they have to remind the ruling party that they have to walk straight. If something wrong is happening in this country, it's the role of the opposition party to point it out. And of course, nothing good is happening on the economic front. You see the way economy is going, the ATMs are going dry. This issue is there since last 10, 12 days and government is not able to address. Under this situation where the ATMs are going cashless, the people of India are going penniless. Half of the India, the ATMs are not working. The issue is serious. Now, government should have all its intelligence. They have all its intelligence. Now, what are they doing on the foreign affairs front? Nothing much. What are they doing on the front with Pakistan? What is the clear policy for Pakistan or China? Nothing is clear. Mr. Doval, even if he is going and attending some meetings, nothing is coming out. The people of India are not knowing what is the exact foreign policy with regard to Pakistan. The economic situation is going bad. The social situation is going bad. There is a clear divide which the BJP leaders are, conducting a clear divide between the castes.
Yes.
Dalits and non-Dalits. Then probably the minorities.
We can't cover every issue that, no, one second, Mr. Sapra, your attempt to cover every issue that's plaguing the country can't hold water here. No, Mr. Sapra, please wait. We can't cover every issue under the sun on this one show. This show is about the Prime Minister being in UK and what should he be talking about, and the point that was raised is that Manmohan Singh has said...
See, he's the Prime Minister of India. He has to answer collective issues of the country.
Please wait. No. But he can't go to the UK and talk about every issue that you are raising, I'm sorry to say. He cannot talk about every issue that is plaguing the country. That's also being very unreal. But let's take it across to Aman Sinha. And Aman Sinha, you know, it's only fair that I tell the Congress party that the Prime Minister can't be raising every issue. But to the BJP, I have to ask that to the BJP, the question really has to be that the former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was repeatedly criticized by the BJP for being Mon Mohan. Today he comes out and says it's time the Prime Minister walks the talk. It's time he practices what he once preached. I'm curious to know, will the Prime Minister talk about the issues that irk Indians right now?
Well, absolutely, Supriya, and it's a historic day for our country as Prime Minister of India addresses the entire global community from the iconic Westminster Central Hall. And he's going to address all the issues. He's going to reach out to the entire global community. And the way our country has emerged as a superpower in recent times, whether it is an economic superpower, even the political prowess and the defense prowess of India is being recognized and acknowledged world over, apart from the immense soft power that we have, Supriya. And you have yourself seen, as you were covering Davos and several other international summits, the kind of respect, the kind of affection and admiration that Prime Minister Narendra Modi enjoys all over the world. It's something which is truly remarkable, and this has in fact never happened in the past earlier. As far as the economic picture is concerned, we are the fastest growing economy today with the lowest inflation rates by any economic parameters, whether it is forex reserves, whether we have 4 years consecutively, we have been the fastest GDP growing country. So on all the parameters, virtually our country is exceeding all and excelling on all fronts. And it is quite surprising, Supriya, that our spokesperson from the Congress party when the whole entire global community admires and acknowledges the kind of role and leadership that India is able to play, the Congress party is trying to portray such a picture of doomsday and despondency, which is quite remarkable, because considering the fact that India is at an international global stage, being the principal opposition party, it would have been better had they kept some criticism, some objective
fair enough. Aman Sinha, if I may interrupt you, I take that point on board.
At least on some objective grounds, which is
fair
not
enough.
there.
I take that point on board. 20 minutes to what is being billed as a historic address, and I think our viewers and our panelists are more curious to know what to expect. And I have a follow-up question to you before I take it to Sunil Alag and Sanjeev Srivastava, which is Vijay Chauthai Wale, in charge of the BJP Foreign Affairs Department, says, and I quote, "It will be a no-holds-barred interaction with the Prime Minister in a manner and format never witnessed before." He's also taking questions via the Narendra Modi app. I'm told video selfies, he's going to answer them. Is this going to be an unprecedented affair? And is it going to be a scripted sort of, chest thumping session, or are we going to see tough questions asked and tough questions answered? What can we expect in 20 minutes from now? Aman Sinha, give us a flavor.
Going to be unprecedented in that sense, because questions have been invited from all different hosts of social media, whether it is Twitter, Facebook, Namo app, and there'll be direct questions also, and there is nothing scripted about this. And in fact, Prime Minister also feels more confident while responding to questions in a very spontaneous manner. So he is not one to go with scripts, etc. And when you have blessings of entire people of this country with you, when you have delivered on all the fronts and all the parameters, despite all the adversity and challenges, you have the confidence to take on any question from whatever source that it may come through.
I'm glad you say that, and I will be very happy if the Prime Minister shows the same amount of spontaneity and his willingness to take in questions on the go in India as well. But that said aside, Sanjeev Srivastava, to you then, there is obviously this hype that's being created. He's going to take questions on the fly. There is going to be no script that's going to be prepared. These questions have been asked and invited for. This isn't a scripted, address. And the government, of course, has branded it as Bharat Ki Baat Sabke Saath. Now, what could that really entail? And do we always risk of creating a hype around an event like this?
Well, this is a question, Supriya, to which we'll know the answer very shortly. So I really don't want to prejudge it and then come across looking not so intelligent. So let's wait for what he says, what is asked. But yes, the one thing which I can safely stick my neck out and say, I personally don't think there will be many tough questions. And the tough questions become tough only when there is a follow-up question. So even if you ask the toughest question and somebody like as masterful an orator like Mr. Modi has to give an answer, he can give the answer, and unless there is a follow-up, it really doesn't make much sense. And also one should remember that he is already addressing a gathering which is more like a fan club, which is a gathering of people already converted. And there's nothing wrong in that. Like I said earlier also, a large section of the diaspora thinks very highly of the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, which is good for him. So I will be waiting for the day when he actually starts taking and answering press conferences back home in India, because not even a structured or an unstructured dialogue with students or people. The proof of the pudding is really when you start taking and answering good press conferences, and he's perhaps the only Prime Minister in independent India who has entered his 5th year without addressing a press conference. And I don't think he did a press conference in his 10 years as Chief Minister of Gujarat also. So that's something remarkable, something which is actually very unprecedented, much more unprecedented than this much hyped, unprecedented, unstructured interaction with the audiences in UK.
Fair point. I know Aman Sinha wants to comment, but I need to welcome on board Anil Shrinate, former ambassador, joining us on the program as well. As a diplomat, what can we expect from this, from the Prime Minister's interaction, Mr. Shrinate? I know, Prime Minister Modi is very unconventional in that sense. He's sort of, ventured into areas and territories that a lot of other former leaders perhaps haven't. But, should we temper our expectations? How big a deal is this going to be? The BJP's build it out to be an unprecedented affair of sorts, an unprecedented interaction of sorts. Do we temper our expectations, or do you believe that this could be such an interaction given the iconic venue where it's happening?
Well, it is extremely important to connect with your diaspora, and the UK diaspora is very special in many ways. because as you know that we have a large number of Indians who are extremely successful. Out of the top 10 top 10 industrialists in the UK, at least 3 to 4 are Indian origin, and they are doing extremely well both in politics as well as in economy and other areas in the UK's life. And they are, as Prime Minister Modi had called them, as a living bridge. And I think that his connect there is going to be extremely good. But what I thought was that since Prime Minister Modi has a much larger vision at the moment, and he has been connecting, which has been seen wherever he goes, and wherever he has been trying to interact diplomatically, and this kind of an extreme diplomatic outreach was not seen for decades in India. And I think that the younger generation in the UK, we have large number of Indian students also, and I saw during the day several of them looking forward to listening to the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister, as somebody else also mentioned, knows how to respond to the queries, how to handle the question, however tricky they are. And he has been, somebody mentioned that he has not had a press conference. Press conferences are not always the most important ways of communicating with the people. I mean, he has his Baat Ki Baat, he does meet all the diaspora, he is giving speeches and communicating whatever is necessary and whenever it is necessary. So I believe that as far as UK is concerned, I'm quite sure that this is what they are telling as the first thing, kind of a town hall meeting and that kind of a thing that is happening. It is going to be an interesting thing, and as I think someone else said, let's see how he reacts to various questions. And it does not seem to be scripted. And we will know in a short while how is he going to react to various questions that are going to be raised. And I'm quite sure the difficult questions will also be asked, and which are in fact putting us in a very difficult situation overseas as far as our image building is concerned.
You know, that's something I really pick a bone with. I don't think, you know, difficult questions are asked, they are never answered for sure. And I don't think this bogey of, you know, when overseas, let's not build a wrong perception. People overseas are connected. They know what's exactly happening back home. They know the tough issues. And I have a question for Sunil Alagh next in just a minute. I'm coming to you, Mr. Aman Sinha and Mr. Sunil Alagh, in just a bit. But there were visuals coming on our screens, and those visuals do tell you why UK has so much of India in their hearts, a huge Indian diaspora, and that's really the target audience of the Prime Minister. If we can pull up the visuals on our screens right now, you know, the Westminster Central Hall is preparing for the Prime Minister's address. I saw a recital. I also did see a performance of Kathak. Can we get those visuals back on the screens? And on the streets, I think there was impromptu Garba that was happening right there. So UK does carry a lot of India in its heart, whether it's the curries or the kebabs. It's all ready for the Prime Minister to once again address. Wembley was a huge success, and the Prime Minister had addressed the audience there. So those are visuals that are coming in from the Central Hall at Westminster, where the Prime Minister will be making his address. It's a packed audience. The Indian diaspora once again looking to hear the Prime Minister in the UK and the pitch that he makes for India, and we'll of course be going live to him the moment he begins. But Sunil Alagh, you know, enough has been said about the tough questions, about no press conferences. As a journalist, I would want the Prime Minister to do a press conference a month, if you ask me, actually, because those are the times when he answers questions. Baat Ki Baat is a monologue. He speaks. There are no questions answered, and that is the difference, Mr. Tringwayad. But very quickly, Sunil Alagh, realistically, do you think he's going to talk about the challenges that face the country? And I am not a doomsayer. I think there's enough good that's happening in India. Let me finish. I think there's enough good that's happening in India. I think there's a good story to tell. But there are also bank scandals. There is also a Nirav Modi and a PNB. There are these horrific rape cases. There's Kathua, there's Unnao. Do you realistically believe he's going to touch upon any of those incidents?
No, you know, as far as I'm concerned, look, he must, if he's going to speak for 20 minutes, I think he's going to spend about at least 15 to 14 minutes, which could be scripted in the sense that what has he done? Where is his vision? Where is he taking the country? Is it still as corrupt as you think? Has he eased the way of business doing? But at the end, if you're trying to tell me that the entire audience over there has been bought out and nobody is going to ask him a tough question, that I'm not ready to believe. So there will be part which is scripted, and he's also prepared himself. He knows the kind of questions that are going to be asked. So I think it will be ridiculous on our part to think that he's walking in so unprepared that nobody is going to ask him about the social questions that are there. And I'll be more interested in seeing how he answers those, because if they are not asked at all, then you're right, then maybe the whole conference has been scripted, then there's no question. But there has to be somebody who will ask these questions. And as far as press conferences are concerned, I think unless you make it a regular thing, like you have the President of the United States that does a press conference every month, if you suddenly come in at a press conference when there's a rape case on, then that's all that the media is interested in. They are not interested in anything else. With importance is also given to the media that, look, I'm going to have a regular press conference. You've got to talk about economic issues, social issues, all issues. Then having a press conference makes sense. But if he comes back and everybody is wanting to knock him out of the park on all the rape cases and everything that's going wrong, then he'll never have a press conference. I mean, I think he'll be stupid to have one with the media like this. So either he makes it a regular fare, like it's done in America, in which case you will have 1 month which is bad, but another month which is good, and that's how it goes. But he has to time the press conference now. Maybe if he's elected, and I hope he is next year, maybe he makes it into a regular scene. Okay. You're right, that he cannot have a monologue all the time.
Absolutely.
That's true. But I think there'll be part scripted, part unscripted today.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're referring to unscripted, it's obviously the Q&A and not his speech.
And you're right. I was just listening to Mr. One last point.
Sure.
One last point, like Mr. One last point I wanted to make about Mr. Sapra when he said 12 days, nobody's got money, everything is collapsing. This is the doomsday thing which they have to stop doing. It's happened only 2 days ago. Yesterday I was in the finance ministry. They said in 3 days they are setting it right. 5 days, some ATM machines have gone wrong. But you've got your credit card which you can use. If you go to any bank and sign a self-check, the banks have the money. Why are you spelling doomsday as if all the money is gone out? That's all. No, forget it. Not answering right now. We are going to listen to the Prime Minister. But to say that everybody is collapsed, nobody's got money, the nation is collapsing, that kind of fear-mongering and panic creation should stop. That's all.
Okay. We've got some time. I think the Prime Minister is expected to speak in a few minutes, but by looking at the screens, or looking at the visuals on my screen, I reckon it's probably going to take a little more time, so this debate can go on for a bit. Charan Singh Sapra, you can come in, but I have a quick follow-up for you itself. Is this a platform for him to bring these issues up, or, is it only fair that he uses his opportunity to project India as an emerging superpower, which he's done so eloquently in similar opportunities overseas over the last few years? Is this the right platform for him to address these issues, or should he just use this to project India as an emerging superpower in the interests of the country? Charan Singh Sapra.
See, if he's talking about Bharat Ki Baat, what do you mean by Bharat Ki Baat Sabke Saath? Yani, he wants to talk collectively what is happening in India. Now, when he's going to talk about positive things, there are real issues which are also to be discussed. It's all the situation is not rosy like Mr. Alag has said. Unfortunately, Mr. Alag doesn't go to ATM. I went to a ATM in Mandi in Himachal Pradesh 4 days ago, and I could not withdraw cash. So that's what I'm saying. Mr. Alag, you have to be very careful. I know you cannot.
Sir, do you have a credit card? Do you have a credit card?
But there are certainly issues.
Do you have a bank account? Sign a self-check and get the money out.
But you don't go to ATM.
I'm not saying
you don't go to
right.
ATM, Mr. Alag. Have you stood in the queue of ATM? Have you stood in queue since last 4 days or 5 days or not?
You don't have a bank account, Mr. Sapra. You don't have a credit card, Mr. Sapra. You cannot go to an ATM without a credit card.
During the demonetization period
without a credit card,
Mr.
Sapra.
I'm just putting up an issue that this country has a lot of issues.
Let's not argue. You're going very
guys, let's not get into this
match. I'm saying you've got a credit card. That's why you go to an ATM. Use your credit card.
1 second. Sunil Alag and Mr. Sapra. Sunil Alag and Mr. Sapra, both of you can't be talking at the same. Okay, let me come in now because both of you can't be speaking at the same time. This isn't one of those channels where we get 8 of you to sit here, waste your time, and then you talk over each other. Talking about the loudest, I think I can do that, but I won't. But, the reality is that these are issues that are plaguing the country. The question is, should he be talking about these issues there? I mean, will it make a difference if the Prime Minister is going to talk about cash crunch before an audience who doesn't, to whom it doesn't make a difference? But yes, it will make a difference if the Prime Minister talks about the girl child in the UK. That's really the moot question. And I think the idea here is to put the answers forward. The idea is not to run each other down. You know, having a credit card is all very good, but it is my choice how I use my money. And Mr. Sapra, you're nobody to question whether my panelist has been to an ATM ever or not. So on both sides, the argument is wrong. Let's restrict it to some amount of dignity. But Aman Sinha, I will come to you, and you've seen a heated exchange already between two panelists. The Congress party says
you need not only show
Mr.
the
Sapra,
picture,
you've
there
had
are
your turn.
real
You've had your
issues
turn. I
at the
will
ground
not let
level
you speak
that needs to be
constantly.
discussed.
No, sir. No.
Yeah.
Mr. Sapra, please keep quiet. Mr. Sapra, please keep quiet. You've had your turn. You can't answer every question. I'm going to Aman Sinha next. Let me just go to Aman Sinha next. And Mr. Aman Sinha, you've already seen it's been a heated exchange between Sunil Alagh and Mr. Sapra of the Congress party. On the Prime Minister, Prasoon Joshi is actually now talking. I'll be interested to listen to what he says. But Aman Sinha, very quickly to you right now. Do we expect the Prime Minister to touch upon some of these uncomfortable and may I also say, you know, serious issues that are plaguing the country right now?
Supriya, you have seen that Prime Minister takes all issues head on and all challenges which are confronting the country. He's dealt with it head on, and there is no reason why, to think that, some questions or difficult questions may not be taken. In fact, some time back, he gave a very freewheeling interview to your group only, and all difficult questions, all subjects were touched upon and all subjects were addressed. So therefore, it's a wrong perception to build that difficult questions are not asked, or, in any case, anybody tries to, wish away the difficult question. That is not the case. In fact, Prime Minister has many a times turned adversity into opportunity and delivered on those accounts. Whether it was demonetization, whether it was GST, large number of structural changes, our economy has also underwent. So therefore, to
Mr. Sapra, let Aman Sinha complete his
pass
point.
these kind of blanket sweeping judgments will be quite uncharitable. And for Mr. Sapra, all I can say is that there is no cash crunch, but you can see the desperation in the Congress party, how they are trying to manufacture a crisis. If there was a cash crunch, Supriya, you know that call money rates would have come down. And that is not the case. The Congress party is trying to build some panic and manufacture a crisis in this country. And if there are any difficult follow-up questions, there are eminent journalists like Sandeep, like Supriya, like Sandeep, and you can always ask follow-up questions.
I take that point. Charan Singh Sapra, don't hijack the debate. Let him complete his point. He's making a point. Charan Singh Sapra, don't hijack this debate. We want everyone to get a word in. We want Mr. Anil Trugnaite. I have a question for him. I have a question for Sanjeev Srivastava, who's been waiting patiently. Let's hear others as well. Let's get all opinions in, and let's have a meaningful conversation. We can have our disagreements, but there's no harm in having a meaningful dialogue. Sanjeev Srivastava,
I'm ready to have a meaningful debate.
Fair enough.
When I am talking, if Mr. Alagh tries to interrupt, then I have all the right to interrupt everybody.
You made your point, Mr. Sapra. Sanjeev Srivastava, simple question to you. Modi is a sharp, politician, and surely he would have realized that, a chest thumping speech, which is what we've sort of, projecting India's might, projecting India as an emerging superpower, the good work that has happened over the last 4 years, is this the climate for that? And would that necessarily win him accolades? And, right now, all we can do, frankly, is speculate. And chances are, none of us in the panel can second guess Prime Minister Modi and what he's going to say and not say. But since we have the luxury of time, let us speculate. So I'm trying to understand, in this political climate, in this environment, he's sharp enough to realize that the tone and tenor cannot be the same as what it was in Wembley or what it was in Madison Square Gardens.
I think you are right, Sandeep. See, the one thing which the Prime Minister said in one of his earlier speeches in the Parliament after becoming the Prime Minister was that at least nobody can fault him for not being a good politician. So, I think as a good politician, he is going to use this platform in London, the Westminster Central Hall, to make a few points. Now, of course, since he is on foreign soil, his primary job remains that he's an ambassador for India, he's a salesman for India. He wants to make his audiences, who are largely Indian diaspora, make them feel good about India, about Prime Minister Modi, about the prospects and opportunities which await them in India, to get investments from them. But at the same time, I'm sure that this is an election year, he's in his 5th year, he is not the Modi of 2014 where everybody and everything was rooting for him. So there will be some realism also, some realism will also be embellishing his speech. So how he will mix his political rhetoric, his ambition to woo more and more people towards his way of thinking with realism is what the challenge before Prime Minister Modi will face today. And he must have already worked out his speech in his mind, what he's going to say, because he's really thorough as far as his communication is concerned. So how much of it will be realism, how much will be addressing and answering difficult questions which are facing him and his party back in India, he will address. How much will be the great rosy picture he is going to paint? I think it will be a mix of both. But largely, the great things his government has done, largely it will be about the great rosy picture which he has already achieved, and also what all remains unfinished, for which he perhaps, he may not say it in so many words, for which he needs another term, another tenure.
Right,
that I think will be somewhere the tenor of his speech.
Absolutely. And just a quick word on the venue that he's speaking at. It's a beautiful venue, the Central Hall at Westminster. It's very picturesque, very beautiful. You can see glimpses of that as it's packed with the audience. But I think I want to take a break away from generalities and really get down to specific issues. And Mr. Tringoya, the question is really coming your way. Do you believe that the Prime Minister is or has spoken to the UK Prime Minister on Vijay Mallya? I mean, it's an issue that hogged newspaper and television headlines, how Vijay Mallya did flee. The government tried to make an example out of him, trying to get him back. Investigative agencies have been on this. The government is trying to make a very serious attempt at cracking down on NPAs, and he somehow, a lot of people believe, embodies what Indian promoters were doing with debt. Do you believe he's going to get down to specific issues like that? Maybe not in his speech, but at least in his interactions.
Yes, I guess that it's for me.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
You see, the Prime Minister has already spoken with Prime Minister Theresa May about Vijay Mallya and others who have been absconding from India and have been charged already. And I think that this is something that is very important to discuss and find out a certain kind of mechanism. And I've been thinking about it, and I think that we need to have enforcement given a kind of relationship that we have, and the kind of relationship that we are hoping to have with the UK post-Brexit, which is going to be far more integral and far more focused, that we must have a certain kind of mechanism where these kind of defaulters or criminals can be repatriated and do not take umbrage under the local laws and keep delaying the extradition mechanisms or whatever mechanisms in place just by virtue of the existence of the current rules, which we also follow in India. And therefore, it is extremely important. As you know, in Denmark, when he met the Danish president in Prime Minister in Stockholm, the Prime Minister has said that he will try and expedite the Kim Davies case. Now, if those are the kind of things that are going to come, and I'm quite sure the British government would try to at least deliver on this high-profile case at the earliest possible. Of course, they have their own laws, but we would like to have it because we need to have these people back in India, and they must face the brunt of the law. And I'm sure Prime Minister Modi will continue to pursue it, and that is something very important.
Oh, indeed. I think we should be cutting live to the venue, to Westminster, to Central Hall in Westminster, where the Prime Minister should be speaking any moment. I'm going to thank this panel, this wonderful panel for now, and I hope you'll join us back after the Prime Minister's speech to analyze what he said and what he didn't say, and then we can talk whether he took those tough questions or not, and what did you make of those answers. For now, let's cut across live to the Central Hall, the Westminster, and be on standby for the Prime Minister's historic address.